If you want to learn Spanish but you're really struggling with the grammar, there's a much better way to learn Spanish grammar than those conjugation tables that have been drilled into our heads since forever. So in this video, let's talk about the best Spanish grammar websites to use to improve your ability to use Spanish grammar in a normal everyday conversation or however it is that you want to use Spanish. Some of the resources that I mentioned will be Spanish specific, others will be general to a bunch of different languages. Either way, every resource that I mentioned in this video is going to be linked down below because it is available in my language app search, so you can get more details and information about these resources before you commit to them. The first Spanish grammar website that I would recommend is Quizzic. Quizzic is a really awesome Spanish grammar website. It's also available in French. That's actually how Quizzic got its start. But its Spanish content has really expanded and is now supportive of both Castilian and Latin American Spanish. The big difference is whether or not you're learning vosotros, vosotras. But Quizzic is really fun and it basically teaches you the bare bones of the grammar from total beginner to really advanced actually. Quizzic is going to give you a really deep, complex understanding of the ins and outs of Spanish grammar. So if you really want like a textbook knowledge of Spanish grammar, then Quizzic is probably your best bet. Because Quizzic teaches you grammar not just by giving you a page with explanations, but it also teaches you the grammar in a variety of different exercises like fill in the blank, writing them out. You have dictation where you listen for the grammar. You can do writing challenges, all sorts of stuff. Quizzic also uses an AI robot that basically follows what you answer right, what you answer wrong, what you don't answer, to give you a really personalized lesson plan of what grammar points you need to work on and which ones you've conquered really well. Quizzic is the most pricey of all the resources I'm going to mention in this video, but I can tell you it is absolutely worth it. It basically teaches you Spanish grammar through constant 10-question quizzes, so it's really easy to have that sense of accomplishment whenever you submit a quiz and you do really well on it. So if you like the gamification of Duolingo, but you need something with a little bit more substance, then Quizzic is a really good option. The next Spanish grammar website that I want to mention is Ella Verbs. And yes, it is pronounced Ella, not Ella. If you go onto their website or you go into my blog post of this app, then you'll get an explanation as to why. But Ella Verbs is a really great, simple, but effective app that you can use to really train your conjugations of Spanish verbs in any conjugation, any verb tense you could possibly want. If you have any experience learning Spanish, then you know that the verb tenses are what gets people stuck. Not only verb tenses themselves, but all the irregular verbs and all the weird patterns that you can come across. Ella Verbs does a really excellent job of allowing you to filter through specific verb tenses, allows you to filter through irregular words, regular words, simple words, more complex words. Is really powerful in how it allows you to pinpoint what exactly that you need to work on so that you can focus on just mastering that particular verb tense. So if you're not necessarily worried about where to place certain vocab words or how to create certain sentences, you just need to focus specifically on Spanish verb tenses and their conjugations, then I really recommend Ella Verbs. My next recommendation for Spanish grammar websites is Anki. Now, if you're familiar at all with Anki or Anki, however you're supposed to pronounce it, then you know that Anki isn't necessarily specifically a language learning app. It's a general app and resource that you can use to study literally anything that you want. And it's strictly a DIY resource, which means you'll have to come up with your own flashcards and make them. There are public flashcards that you can use, but Anki is really great in how it's customizable and people really enjoy just the bare bones study aspect of it. So if you really want to improve your Spanish grammar, but you want to have like really finite control over the resource, what vocabulary you're learning, what verb tenses you're learning, conjugations you're learning, and how you're learning them, then Anki will really give you a very precise control over that. And it's really deeply DIY, so it takes some time to learn how to use and get used to it, but a lot of people are diehard Anki fans. So if you want to be the one in control of literally every single part of your study, then Anki can be a really helpful tool. Next on the list of best Spanish grammar websites is Spanish Dict. As the name suggests, it is Spanish only, which can be really beneficial. But Spanish Dict is primarily a Spanish to English dictionary, so you can use it for translations a lot. It's one of my favorite ways to translate Spanish between Spanish and English. But they've also recently, over the past like couple of years, expanded to Spanish grammar. It's fairly surface level, so it doesn't go as deep as something like Quizzic or I Love Verbs does. But it can be really helpful if it's just like you need a little bit of help here and there and you find Spanish Dict's process really engaging, which is video lessons basically. Spanish Dict gives you basically video clips of a conversation and you can respond to a conversation, you can fill in the blank, all sorts of stuff. It can be really helpful and really fun. It's not my personal favorite, but it can be really, really effective, and I've definitely used it in the past for Spanish grammar. Regardless if you use it for grammar or not, if you're learning Spanish, I do recommend using Spanish Dict for the English to Spanish translations because it's probably the most effective one there is. The next Spanish grammar website that I want to recommend is Closemaster. If you're not familiar with what a close is, it's basically just fill in the blank, and so Closemaster is master of the closes. Closemaster is available in a ton of different languages, including Spanish, and that's because Closemaster does not necessarily come up with their own content, but Closemaster sources its sentences from another website called Tatoba, I believe it's pronounced. It basically sources a bunch of different sentences and registers and understands what grammar points and what conjugations each sentence has and uses those sentences to test you on which word to use to fill in the blank. Now be aware that Closemaster is not for beginners. If you want to get the most out of Closemaster, you need to be at least an intermediate level because there's not going to be explanations about grammar. There's going to be a lot of funky vocabulary because, like I said, it's not really a curated list of sentences. It's basically random. So you can get a lot of really strange sentences. And if it's something that's going to make it impossible for you to understand without a lot of work, then it's not going to be helpful for the actual Spanish grammar. Because if you're spending so much time trying to understand the sentence itself, then you don't have enough energy for the actual task at hand. So you want to make sure you at least, can get a general idea of most any Spanish sentence before trying to use Closemaster. But if you are at the appropriate level for Closemaster, then it can be a really, really helpful tool just because there's essentially unlimited sentences. The Closemaster website itself and the app does organize these sentences into different, more complicated grammar points. So for example, if you're struggling with "puedo" versus "para," which is traditionally a difficult concept to master, there's a whole section just for that. You can just press go and you can be tested on "puedo" versus "para." Or if you need to work on something specific, it's easy enough to search up a particular word or grammar point or whatever it is. Closemaster will give you all the sentences that match what you're looking for, and you can create your own collection to master that particular concept. So Closemaster is a nice happy medium between curated, as in they have tons and tons of sentences, so you don't have to do a whole lot of work, especially for the really common concepts, with also the flexibility to allow you to create your own study resources by just searching for whatever it is that you want to work on at the moment. Visually, Closemaster can be a little bit overwhelming for me personally. It's total personal opinion. It's based on like 80s retro gaming. So it can be fun if you're into that kind of thing. It can be overwhelming if you get overwhelmed by that kind of thing. It's really up to your personal interests. Or if you like the idea, you just want more hands-on control, you can take the sentences that you find on Closemaster or Tatoba and put them into your Anki deck. That way it's easier to source the sentences and find the content that you want to use to work on your Spanish grammar, but also dictate exactly what you're learning, how you're learning it, when you're learning it. And my next recommendation for best Spanish grammar websites is Conjuguemos. Obviously, the name of the website says it all, Conjuguemos. We conjugate, but it's not strictly for Spanish. It has like 6 languages available or something like that, but Spanish is the most popular one, the most common one. Basically, Conjuguemos is used by teachers who want to supplement their textbook work with something a little bit more engaging that students can use on the computer, because if you search for textbooks, there's a variety of textbooks that Conjuguemos recognizes and knows, and then you can pair the textbook subject and topic and the content and whatever with what you're using on Conjuguemos. But even if you are not in a formal Spanish class, you don't have a textbook, it's easy enough to just log into Conjuguemos and play around with what's available. They have a bunch of different games. They're kind of simple, but it can be an engaging way to practice your Spanish grammar. Personally, my favorite part of Conjuguemos is where you can go in and you can select which verb tenses you want to practice, and it just gives you a trial by fire, and you have to sit there and quickly conjugate each of the verbs in the appropriate tense. It's kind of like ela verbs in that way, just with less search functionality. It's more difficult to search for whatever particular verb tense or vocabulary or anything like that that you want to learn. There is some organization to it, there is some searching to it, but not as complex as ela verbs gets. With all that being said, remember that if you are learning Spanish in order to communicate, you don't need like 90% of the grammar that is available. It's really up to you to decide what grammar is necessary to fulfill your goals in your language learning. That's why one of the first things I teach my clients in the method is to pinpoint what exactly it is important for you to learn so that you don't have to worry about all the other mess of things that are necessary but not actually necessary for you. Is it necessary for you to have absolutely perfect conjugation? Is it necessary for your Spanish goals to truly understand the subjunctive tense? That is something that is worth thinking about and understanding for you, so that when you go through the list of resources that I mentioned in this video, you don't have to be completely overwhelmed by all the things there are to learn, because yes, there are things that you can learn, but you don't have to learn anything that you don't want to learn. Every language learner honestly has so many decisions to make. So the first step I would recommend is to take the free quiz linked below in the description. Based on your answers to the quiz, you'll get personalized recommendations for what to do next in your own language learning, regardless of what I want to do in my own language learning or regardless of what anybody else wants to do, because it's all about you and your personal language learning journey. And remember, if you found this video valuable, to subscribe and hit the bell to be notified when I post a new video all about language learning every Wednesday. And of course, make sure to take that free quiz below. I'll see you there.